A Moment with Dr. AudreyAnn Moses.
Hello, hello, hello. How is everybody doing this evening? This is Dr. AudreyAnn Moses, and this is A Moment with Dr. AudreyAnn. And I have the privilege of having two of my friends, my sisters, my confidants on with me again today. So, all month we have been talking about reading because the month of March this month is National Reading Month. And so we are all authors and we are talking about the importance of reading, what it means when we say reading is fundamental. And we're just talking about what we do personally and how important reading is with that. So at that, I am going to introduce my friends, my cohorts, and my comrades, and whatever you want to call us, because we are sisters, and you can't split us up. So you could just say, well, call us whatever you want. But we have Miss Melanie Johnson and Mrs. Jacquiline Cox, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you what it is they do. Miss Melanie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Dr. AudreyAnn, for inviting me on today. This is the hardest part I get to, is try to talk about myself. But I'm an educator, I'm a writer, a poet, a publisher, and anything else somebody needs me to do. I just try to do. Oh, I'm a photographer.
I was just going to say, you're a photographer, girl. I was just typing it.
Yeah, I'm a photographer. So I enjoy doing life. And so as long as I can have breath in my body, I want to live, and whatever that life takes me to, that's what I want to do. And I like helping others as well. So that's just a little bit about me. Oh, I'm a country girl. I'm from Mississippi. So
yeah, she fits right in with, well, we love Jackie, we really do, but she one of them city girls. But
that's just my cousin. Geographical location. Okay.
So Miss Jacqueline.
Okay, well, I could talk about myself all day long. We might overload the whole show if we talk about everything I do. So I'm gonna keep it cute and keep it short. Listen, Linda. Well, my name is Jacqueline Cox, but my personality and my brand is Listen Linda. I am CEO of Listen Linda Brand and Marketing. I am also an author, 11-time best-selling author. All of them are not anthologies. 7 of them are solo projects. Boom, bam. I had to say that. I am the chief and editor and founder of Listen Linda magazine. I am a poet. I am a mom. I am a youth advocate, a lupus advocate, and a lupus warrior, thyroid cancer survivor. And I'm also Mrs. Illinois, USA ambassador, just crowned Mrs. Illinois.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So I'm not a city girl. I'm the city girl.
Yeah, she is. She is the city girl.
Okay. And I'm not talking about Carisha. Okay. I am the city girl. Okay. And no, but in all fairness, I'm also a girl's girl. I believe I am 100% women empowerment. I'm a woman of God, a woman of faith, Christian faith, non-denominational. I'm also a writer, a contributing writer, and top columnist on Pathos as well as Medium Digest. So that's just a little bit of background about me. I'm a wife, a mom. And just if y'all need a friend, I'm here, but my ears are not your trash can.
Yes. That's for the psychologist. That's me. So I really thank you all. And so this is what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about writing as an author of fiction or nonfiction and writing as an author that is as a poet. So, and I know that both of you ladies have done both. And so I wanted to talk about that, like your experience, short, Miss Jackie. So
I always got to get picked on Miss Jackie. It's okay.
No, we love her. We love her.
I
And so
keep it cute and short.
thank you. But about the difference between your experience as a writer and your experience as a poet. And then we want to talk about as for readers, what is the difference between the two?
Okay, well, for me, I started out writing poetry. That was my escape, and that was my therapy. I got into actually writing by doing a memoir about my life, and I started out as a poetic memoir, and it became very therapeutic as far as writing, but also very triggering. So, upon talking to my own therapist, she explained to me, hey, well, if poetry is therapeutic, why not infuse your poetry with your writing and incorporate it? And so anything that I do, if you've read any of my literature, whether it was my fiction with Chi-Town Diamond in the Rough, or if it was nonfiction with Mountains, or any of the Women of the Waiting Room series or anything that I've done, you will see that with everything that I write, I incorporate poetry. Every single thing, on down to my magazines, anything that I write, you'll find my poetry there. And that is so I can remain authentic. I can write without being triggered. And I do my best creative work with my poetry.
Yes.
And so I believe in speaking with just for myself, I use poetry as a sense of release, but also as a sense of therapy. It's almost like as if I'm reading the Bible. The Bible is very therapeutic for me. And I incorporate that as well into everything that I write. I just feel like when you do things and you do things authentically, it will show. And the difference between the two, I guess, is that with fiction, you can be just as creative and imaginative as you want to be. But with nonfiction, you have to be on point, and it has to be all the way true. Whereas with poetry, it could be both. Two can be this. Two things can be true with that. So that's the short end for me.
Miss Melanie.
Of course, my sister has done such a wonderful job explaining it. But it's very similar to what she said. I actually started writing poetry after I had a miscarriage. And I had actually checked myself into a mental institution to get some therapy, and that became how I expressed myself, was through poetry. But I never imagined writing something that someone else would want to read. It was just personal. It was for me. And I was in a abusive relationship, abusive marriage, and I was discouraged from writing. I was discouraged from reading, and because I wasn't supposed to think for myself. So that created a bad situation for me with literature, with writing and reading. And so I kind of shied away from it until I was able to get out of the relationship. And once I got out of the relationship, and I had a mentor, because I felt like I had lost myself. I did not know who I was. After 2 suicide attempts, I was like, I don't know my reason for being here. And my mentor suggested that I journal again, especially now that I was by myself. and I didn't have anybody who was going to be looking over my shoulder, criticizing what I did. And so that journal writing became therapeutic for me because I was able to express things that I couldn't tell anybody. At least I didn't think I could, until when I shared my journal entries with my mentor. He was like, you need to share this with other people. They need to hear it. And that became my first book about my experiences as a domestic abuse survivor. And from there, I was encouraged to do poetry by entering into a poetry contest. And I was like, I don't do poetry. And somebody had tagged me in a post. And so I kind of brushed it away until the next time the author of the post actually included me in it, and I didn't even know him. I was like, why do these people think I'm a poet? And so at the last minute, I submitted something, and it was chosen to be included in the anthology. I was like, okay. I too use my poetry for therapy, to express my feelings, and especially those that don't think that I can verbalize with just talking to people. But I found that I use my poetry to highlight a lot of things that are like issues. I deal with a lot of issues, whether it's my own issue or issues with I see with someone else, or some issues in the world. And that's where I flourish, because when I write about those things, it's like the pen just bleeds onto the paper.
Right.
So
Right.
I've been able to use my poetic pen, and I published my very first poetry book, Flavor of Melanin. And then I began writing poetic pieces for a journal, for magazines, including Listen Linda. So
Yes, I'm
I
just
just,
yes, she do good.
I enjoy it. It's like I get a chance to just express myself and give people another way of looking at things. It's different with poetry than my writing, because with my writing, it was recalling events and letting people know, because my book was about, it was nonfiction, it was about my life. So I recalled events and I talked about my feelings, but it was more of an informational type setting. But when I write about it using poetry, I get to use my words to paint a picture of what I want the reader to see poetically. And I just love the language and being able to manipulate the words so that they flow. And it's like a whole journey you can take someone on. And then at the end, you don't just leave them. You take it all the way back to the beginning with just one word. It's just, I enjoy it.
Yeah. I love poetry, and I know, and I understand clearly what both of you all are saying about the difference between writing poetry and writing, just writing. Now, I've always, since I was a young child, kept a journal. And or I was always writing something, and I was writing down my feelings, and I was writing raw. So whatever was going on in my life at the time, I was just writing it down. And so it wasn't always poetic sounding, but it was still what was raw in me at the time. And so I have used a lot of that to talk about, in my books. One of my books, is based on my journals, and it actually has the journal entries. And I think it's so important when I have clients, I definitely encourage my clients to use journals because it helps you to get it out of your head and onto the paper. And like you said, at some point you're going to realize that, oh, I'm writing this, and and I didn't know I was a poet. I didn't know I was a writer, and so it comes out like that. So when you all are telling people, you both have said that you started your poetry because of the phase that you were going through in your life at the time.
Mhm.
And so is there a time when you prefer one to the other? That you prefer writing poetry as opposed to writing fiction or nonfiction?
You know what? These days, for me, I will say that I write poetry every day.
Mhm.
And a lot of times people don't understand just because things don't have to rhyme for it to be a poem.
Right.
A lot of my poetry don't rhyme, and a lot of it do. A lot of it is just basically about the message behind the piece and the feeling that you want to take the reader on, or even
Right.
yourself, and just getting that emotion out.
Right.
Right, like I say, it's therapy. And
Mhm.
these days, child, I need therapy every day. I think I may write 50 a day to keep to keep your sanity. And people don't like, for a creative, like me and my cousin Melanie, for
Yeah.
creatives, it really is better than medicine.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the next thing after the Bible for me. It's
Right.
writing. And it's almost like you on a high.
Mhm.
It's like, and then then you go back. Like, I was dealing with some things yesterday, and I just came out and I wrote Caged Bird. And a lot of times people, I try to recreate. I know why Caged Bird sings,
Mhm.
but I did it from a different perspective.
Right.
When after I got done writing it, I read it to my husband. I said, "What you think?" He said, and he gonna always say it's good, but if it ain't good, he'll let me know too. And he was like, "No, that is powerful. You should put that on Facebook." And so I did. I put it on Facebook. But what
Mhm.
I is a lot of things I keep to myself. Like, when I started writing, and my first poem I ever wrote was about a lady named Miss Fizel. She's my fifth grade teacher, Miss Joyner
Mhm.
Fizel. She my friend on Facebook today.
Yeah.
And it was a mean poem, child. But look, when I wrote it, she did not get upset. She
Yeah.
said, "Now, if you take that and you turn the energy around, you'll be
Right.
one of the best writers
Mhm.
ever." And that's what
Mhm.
kicked off my journey in
Yeah.
writing. What
Right.
what what you think about it, Mel?
Mhm.
I'm gonna pass the mic.
Well, with me, a lot of times poetry just comes out. It's not like I try to do it. Sometimes I'm laying in the bed and it's 11 o'clock at night, and I get up at 4:50 every morning, and I'm trying to get some rest, and it's like bugging me, and I just have to sit there and write. And that's the difference for me with the writing poetry versus just writing a fiction or nonfiction, which
Mhm.
I did just finish my first fiction. It was a
Yay.
ghostwriting it was a
Mhm.
ghostwriting test, but it was fun. It was fun. I
Mhm.
learned how Jackie and all those fictional writers have all these characters in their head. But and
Yes,
they
girl,
just
it was
live there.
fun,
In
wasn't it?
fact, I got a couple of them still living in there. I'm like, move out." But with poetry, like I heard someone use the N word and then tried to act like they didn't, but it
Mm.
was used to try to belittle us and try
Yeah.
to make somebody feel bad.
Right.
And I wrote a poem about it. I was upset. I was mad. And I just came up
Mhm.
with a poem about it. It's
Yeah.
probably one I can never share. But I wrote a poem
But you
about it.
got it out of your system.
Yeah. And it just happens like that. And
Yeah.
like Jackie said, a lot of times I'm writing a poem a day or something. Especially with the loss, and Jackie experienced this also more recently than I, with the loss of my mom. Sometimes
Mhm.
just to get past it, I write a poem about a tear. It's just one thought, a
Mhm.
tear, and it can evoke feelings and emotions, and you just have to get it out. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes I write about some crazy stuff. I
And see,
was in
I
a
like
restaurant.
crazy stuff.
I was in a restaurant, and it had really, really tall ceilings, very
Mhm.
tall. And there were some outlets all around the room at the top of the ceiling. And I was sitting there eating. I was like, first of all, who's going to be able to reach them? And second of all, what are they needed for? I mean, if it wasn't 10 around that room, I don't know how wasn't any. And I was like, so I came home and wrote a poem about it.
Yeah.
So
I'd
poetry
like to
just kind of
read that.
flows.
I bet it's, yeah.
Poetry
And
just kind of flows for me. And it's
yeah.
like, with writing, I get to sit down. Now, when I write, I sit down and I just want to write. I don't want to eat. I don't want phone calls. I don't want anything. Just let me write. But with poetry, it's just like, ooh, a little quickie. I just
Mm-hmm.
write it and then go on by my business, do something else.
Mm-hmm. When Jackie, you have something?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, you talking about, do I got something to read?
No, I thought you were going to say something.
No. Well, I can. I can. But no, basically, I second everything everybody is saying. With writing, for me, it's not that it's forced, but it's almost like, okay, well, once you start, you got to make sure you
Yeah.
like the task.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you want to go ahead and get it done because it's like when you taste something good and you don't want it to stop. You want
Yeah.
you want that feeling to keep
You want to
going.
But
finish it.
yeah.
Finish it
Yeah.
all. You want it.
Yeah.
You don't want it to go to waste.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, like my
poetry
coffee. When I sip
is
my coffee, I try to sip it a little bit at a time because I get that last corner, I want some more.
You want some more. And
right.
see, that's how I am with writing. It's like, I've always kept, like I said, I've always kept a journal, and some of it, if you read it, it may look like poetry, because I'm just writing, whatever's going on in my life at the moment, and I'm putting it out. But I do not consider myself to be a poet at all. But I do remember there were times when I have written like one paragraph of something, because I remember when my son was in trouble and I had to go to the courthouse, and I wrote this little something about how I never saw the inside of a courtroom until today,
Mhm.
and things like that I would write. And so, but for me, that little snippet would become a whole book. It will become a story,
Mhm.
so, and I'll start from there, and then I'll build a story around it, so now this is one thing that I've always wondered. Why is it, well, that's not why is, how do you explain to people that think that they have to like one or the other? How do you explain to them that it's okay to like both? That, and that the energy for it is different. How do you explain that?
Well, I can go first on that one. When I'm talking to people about poetry and I talk to people about writing is more of an extensive um compilation of thoughts and ideas, and it carries you along a continuum.
Mm-hmm.
And usually if you're writing like a book or something, everything is going to flow in a sequential manner, no matter what the sequence is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to flow and it's going to have fluidity throughout from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm.
With poetry, it's like you get to take one moment in time and focus all your ideas on that one moment in time. And guess what? You don't have to think about that moment anymore until you get to the next moment. For
Mm-hmm.
me, it's like, okay, if like right now, I have a couple of books in my head that I want to just get out, and it's in there, and I know what I want to say, and it's going to take me more than just a page or two. So that I'm going to have to sit down and write about it.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them include expressing ideas and creating imagery.
Mm-hmm.
But with poetry, you get to do that with less words, and it's more creative and it's more
Mm-hmm.
challenging to take the ideas of a whole book and condense it down to just a few stanzas.
Right.
So
Wow.
I'm a seamstress as well. I forgot to say that. I'm a seamstress as well. So it's kind of like the difference in sewing with a single needle machine and an
Mm-hmm.
embroidery machine. The
Right.
single needle, it's going to put your clothes together. You're going to have a nice, beautiful outfit. Everything's going to be beautiful. But when you take that embroidery machine, you're able to create pictures and images based on the same type of stitching, but
Yeah.
just in a more creative way.
Right. Right.
Poetry to me is more, um, how do I say it? It's more feeling. It's creative, but it's more like music to me.
Mm,
I'm a music lover at heart. Okay. And so, and it's more to me, I won't say it's more expressive, but to me, it's a lot less thought provoking because with poetry, you could do so many different things to it, and it don't always have to make sense for it to be beautiful. When you're reading a book, you will get critiqued more. If readers will critique a book, a memoir, a fiction, a nonfiction, way more than they could ever do with poetry because poetry is
mhm,
considered more so art than literature.
mhm.
If that makes sense, poetry is like a painting. It's like music.
Right.
It's
Right.
like composure. You get what I'm saying? You have full creative control over everything you do. Okay, but I think it has to be more realistic and make more sense if it's a, a memoir or if it's
Mhm.
literature opposed to somebody creative work. So
Right.
let's say I'm reading Toni B. Morrison, right? One of my favorite authors, right? I'm reading a book of hers. Hers flowing as good as art because it's her literature. But
Mhm.
I'm also reading a poem by Nikki Giovanni. It's not rhyming. It's not, going to a specific beat, but it's
Mhm.
both of them are in my eyes beautiful
Mhm.
because you got her what she was feeling in like Melanie say in that moment, and she captured a moment through her
Mhm.
mind. You could see what's going on through her eyes, but then
Mhm.
with the literature it just takes a little bit longer for you to understand, but then it still
Right.
has to be broken down in depth for people to understand because they will want to understand because they
Right.
taking more time to read it.
To read it. Mhm.
To an art museum or you go into an art gallery, you looking at what from the painter's eyes, what they
Mhm.
see. And then you not only looking at what they may have been going through their mind but what do you see? You might see something totally different.
Mhm.
But with the literature, it has to interpret the same.
Right.
Or it's not gonna make sense. I don't
When
believe I can give a writer a bad review about a book that I read that don't make sense. But when it comes to a painting, I can't possibly give somebody's vision of creative moment a bad review because that's their I can only interpret it from the way I interpret it, but I
Mhm.
can't judge them based on their interpretation of their art, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Right. I I um I always wonder when I read like the Bible. I love reading the Bible along with everything else that I read. And especially in the Old Testament, there is a lot of poetry, and lyrics, especially in
Absolutely.
Psalms,
Mhm.
Songs of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs. Those are all like
Song.
different types of writing in those different types of poetry. I look at it as poetry.
Mhm.
Somebody else might look at it as something else because like Proverbs, they have these little snippets. It may only be like 5 or 6 words for a thought, like Melanie was talking about. It's like a thought, and once that thought is done, it's done. Now they're going talking about something else, and now they're talking about something else.
Mhm.
And some of them that I read, I have to go back and read it because I'm like, what? you know, and then
The
I go back and
poetry.
read. Yeah, and that's how I feel
Then
about
every time you
poetry.
read it, you read you
Something different.
something different. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get a different feeling about it, you know, and I'm like that about books, but how many times do you hear of people that reread the same book over and over and over? You know, a lot of times they don't, but people will real reread a poem, you know, over and over. So, and every time they read it, you know, it's like you say, you get a different feeling about it. So, so when you so we've talked about when you are writing, how you determine if it's going to be a poem or a book, or it may end up being both, you know. So when you're talking, like Melanie, for you, how you are a mathematician,
Mhm.
which, you know, I honor that in my spirit, because I am the worst math teacher. Someone was asking me about counting something. I said, look, I have a PhD in psychology, not
Hello.
math. You know, don't ask me about math stuff, because I don't know it. You know, and I barely pass statistics. So,
Yes.
but anyway, so how are you able to incorporate the idea of poetry while you're teaching your kids math?
Well, with the number of standards we have to teach on a weekly basis now, it's kind of hard. But a
Mhm.
lot of times when I'm talking to them, I discuss the lesson in poetic ways. I find myself rhyming or saying something poetically, and they're like, "Miss Johnson, did you notice you just rhymed?" And I was like, "When you're a poet, you can't help it." But
Yeah.
it helps me to be able to tell them things or present things to them in a way that's more memorable. If they
Hmm.
can hear it in a poem or in a little song, a little ditty, then they're like, okay, I can remember that.
Yeah.
And it gives you a different idea of how to present something. But I
Hmm.
do, in my role as a teacher,
Hmm.
get to show them that even though I teach math, I'm so much more than a math teacher. I'm a
Right.
student. So
Right.
I teach them things that just not math. And I have a student, it's funny, I had a student today came up to me during my planning period and asked me to help her because she has a poetry competition tomorrow. So she asked me to help her with some ideas of how to make her poetry better. And
Hmm.
so I get to do things like that. And they see
Hmm.
me not just, oh, she the math teacher. She don't know anything about reading or
Hmm.
writing, but they see me as a full individual because of
Right.
the accolades that I have received from being a poet.
Right. That's good. Miss Jackie, now you're a boy mom.
Yeah.
And
My beautiful, my handsome nephews.
That's right.
yes, yes, and I'm a boy mom, so I understand. I'm a boy mom and a boy grandmom and a boy great grandmom.
Mm.
Wow.
So so I
God bless your
understand what that
ministry.
means. You know, I live in a house with all males,
Me too. God bless your
so
ministry.
even the dogs are male. So
Well, my dog is a girl, but she want to be a male.
so
Pray for
I
her.
understand. But now both of your husband and both of your sons are authors.
Best-selling authors.
And so how were you able to encourage them to be authors?
You know what? I started both of my boys out reading very, very early. My boys have always been into books, and I think it's because um, I actually was a daycare teacher and a second grade teacher in my early 20s when I was working 3 jobs to support just me and my son before I started dating my husband and marrying him. I was a single mom. And so when I first started out, I started out as a first grade daycare teacher. And I always incorporated my job with raising my kids.
Mhm.
So it was always, sight words on the wall, colors, numbers, shapes, crayons, on the wall, just so they can be able to see things at a very, very young age, and just always taking that time and implementing that time into my kids. By the time Jaden was 2, he had read almost 40 books. He didn't go anywhere without his books. His first photo shoot, he was sitting at the park in the middle with the leaves with his books. Okay, loved his books. He wouldn't go nowhere without his books. So even with that, and then when Marvis was about 1, he was into writing and reading and colors, and by that time, YouTube came up and they had all these different things teaching the kids they shapes and different things. So
Right.
I've always incorporated reading and the love for reading with my children. I do story time with them all the time. Marvis used to have his own little thing that he used to get on Facebook Live at 3 years old and read books on Facebook Live, like whole books. Like, so when it became time to actually write the books, um, Jaden was dealing with some issues with his school with racism and discrimination and bullying. And he had to write a paper. And he wrote a paper, and the teacher told him, "This is so good, it should have been a book." So when he came back and he showed me that he got a good grade on it, and I saw where she put that up there, I said, "This actually is good, and it is a book. And what do you think about turning it into a book?" And he was so happy about it because he always wanted, 2nd grade, he did an anthology with his class, and, he was already a published author, but not to have his own solo project that he could say, "Hey, well, I did this and I did on my own." So I was able to encourage them just by doing it first. And because kids mimic what they see, and by their dad being a published author as well, amongst other things, um and they see the success in that, and they see that it made us happy. And we're all creatives in this house. Each one of us have our own special gift in this house where we're creatives, but then we're same, and we bond in that aspect of words, of poetry, of writing, and the love for books. And they love books so much that they wanted their own book. I didn't have to push them or force them into it. And then the moment that they say, "Okay, well, I did that, I accomplished that, I checked that off the list," and they move on to something else. And I'm
Something else,
okay with,
yeah.
but as long as I know that I did help them with anything that they want to do. Tomorrow they could say they want to go to space. We're gonna figure out how to get them in NASA. That is just, I believe that when you have children, or even if, like with Melanie, she got a whole bunch of children that she's at school with. Anything that you see that lights up a child's eyes,
Yeah,
invest in that, and
yeah.
you encourage it. And I think just being an encouraging parent, and setting the tone by doing, and not giving up on the things that I set out to do, then I don't have to pressure them. I could just say, "Hey, you started something, you definitely want to finish it." And they get it done, and do it in a respectful way.
Yeah.
Um, that tend to work. Like I said, we all creatives in that aspect in my household, where we do a plethora of things. Like Jaden he's like this whole personality on Twitch and YouTube, and he teach me a lot of things behind the scenes that people don't even know, that a lot of the things that I do now I learned because my son taught me. Okay.
Right.
And with Marvis is still into writing, he's still into his books, but he's a gamer just like Jaden. They mimic
Yeah.
what they see.
Yeah.
So make sure that I just set the tone, and my husband, he's going to always set the tone, and just be a good role model for your kids. But don't fake it, or don't
Right.
expect anything out of your kids that you're not willing
You're
to
not
show.
willing to do.
Yeah.
I had and it's been funny because all the authors are saying the same thing, that you have to put the books in front of the children. And I remember a while back, I was a consultant for Head Start, and I was a behavioral consultant. And so what my job was to come in and observe children, and the children that are having issues, then I had to kind of figure out why they were having behavior issues. Well, one of the children wasn't having a behavior issue, but the teacher considered it to be, only because it annoyed her. Because what he would do is he would come in, he may or may not eat his little breakfast, and he would go to sleep. So, he's 4, so he would go to sleep. And so she was wanting me to come and make him not go to sleep, Well, come to find out, the bus picked him up like 5 o'clock in the morning, and his mother woke him up. His mother worked second shift. So she would wake him up when she got home at 11, 12 o'clock, because she felt like that was the only time she had time with him. So, so he wasn't getting, she wasn't there to help him with his reading or help him with anything. But she was still instilling bad habits in him, because she would wake him up out of his sleep just so that she could say hi, and so that she could like spend some time with him to satisfy her guilt of having to work second shift. But then the child wasn't getting any learning in school either, because he was asleep. So one of the things that when he was awake, he was quite fidgety, and of course the teacher was upset about that also. But at home, I asked the parent, I said, well, when you read to your child, how long do they sit? And she looked at me like I was speaking in German, because she did not read to her child. She's like, well, whenever we're together, it's not often that I'm with him, because I work second shift. And when I'm not working, I'm tired, so I'm asleep. So she never spent that time with her child, even helping him to read or anything. And it's so important that parents carve out that time, hands-on time, to read with their children. Because when they become older and you're wanting them to read for themselves, how is that going to happen? And so then now you have a 20-year-old calling you every 5 minutes because they're at the grocery store and they don't know how to read the signs to tell them where everything is. You see those little commercials where the 20-year-old is calling the mom, said, this application says DOB, what does that mean? And so, because we didn't take time to really teach our kids and give them that love of reading, it's so important to give your children that love of reading, because when they become adults, they need that. And don't use the excuse that, they're on their laptop, they're on their game, or they're on their whatever. We didn't have all of that, but we had TV, we had computer, and I used to limit the amount of time that my kids was on that. They had to read, and they had to go outside and get fresh air, and play outside. Those were things that they had to do. And so I think we have to get our parents back into that mode of limiting the time that they are on their games.
Screen time.
Right, so that they can learn. And even though they have educational things on the screen, they still need to not be on that all the time.
Yep.
They need to have a physical book. A physical
Take
book.
the kids to the library. We love taking our kids to the library, and they eyes light up when they go to the library and they see their books in the library, or they see their parents' books in the library.
Right.
It does something to them. It encourages them to want more of that. And then to reward that behavior. Hey, you read a book today. You get this or you get that. Hey, I'm gonna read some more. Sure, I want this, I want that. And it literally, it helps. It really does. It really does. Because and I'm gonna tell you, a lot today, a lot of people in general don't read. They take visuals And that's why I tend to incorporate that as well. If it's a book or something that I want my kids to read, do you know I will take the synopsis from that book and make a little video about it, and then
Hmm.
I play it for them and they'll be like, "Oh, what's that? I want to watch that." Nope, that's this book.
No, that's a book. Yeah.
That's a book. That's a
Hmm.
book, and that's what made my son read the book Snowy Day. He
Yeah.
see the video of the snowy day first. And I was
Yeah.
like, you want to know what happened at the end? You got to go read the book.
Gotta go read the book. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're almost out of time. So what I would like is for you all to tell us what projects you have going on now.
Mel, you go first. Mel, is Mel on here?
Oh, you're still on mute.
I'm sorry. Thank you. My heating unit, because I'm cold, my heating unit came on, so I didn't want the noise to be disturbing.
Oh.
Um, I said I can be short and sweet. Right now I'm working on promoting a new book that I just published with one of my authors, and I am also working on taking one of my poems and making it into a children's book. So I'm working on getting that finished, and I want to also do something anthology with me and my family to honor my mom, and hopefully get that done before her birthday in May.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. Miss Jackie.
I am working on volume 2 of The Women of the Waiting Room. It is an anthology and devotional, two separate projects, and it speaks on it's a Christian faith-based book, and it speaks on how God delivered um, me from my waiting room, and then I invited other people to join, and just the goodness of God and how He wraps you in your time of need and in your time of despair, and how you was able to overcome those things. And if you're still in that waiting season, or you're still going through, how your faith keeps you um and your spirit keeps you aligned and in focus with God's plan for your life. So I'm working on that. I'm the visionary on that, or the vessel of that, as well as the Women of the Waiting Room poetic ministry. And with that one, it's a poetic anthology where I'm inviting 10 more poets to come on to be a part of that. And it's $79. They can come in, they can write as much poetry as they would like within the same synopsis and the same theme of the women in the waiting room. I have the Listen Linda magazine that I'm working on, the February editions, Black Christian couples, where the couples come on, they tell their love story, and how faith have kept them together. And I think this is going to be a beautiful magazine. It's for the February edition. And of course, I started the Women of the Waiting Room Live that comes on every
Yeah.
Friday. And it basically, women from the first volume and the second volume come on, and they tell the story about their chapters and sneak peeks. But I also have the Listen Linda Book Club, which comes on every Sunday, which Dr. AudreyAnn is the February author of the month. Okay. And with
Yeah.
that, you can come on, you can actually be the book of the month. It's $99 now. You should have got in where you fit in when it was 69, but it's 99 now. And every week, we come on. I have over 400 members in the club, and people buy the books. We discuss the book every week, and at the end of the month, the author gets Amazon reviews. There's free graphics. You may come on and get a free video trailer. You never
It
know
was beautiful.
what would be. I'm always giving out just different things, and you also get a feature in the magazine the Listen Linda magazine also to help promote. And then I promote you on all my platforms, 17 countries worldwide. You get full blown promotion, all of that for $99. And so you get more book sales, more real Amazon reviews, more people talking about your book, and just all around more exposure. So I did that for authors who I feel, especially Black authors who just need that extra boost.
Yeah.
And they don't have to pay a lot for it, and they get
Yeah.
real reviews, and really get to see real people reading your books and know that what you're doing and the literature that you're putting out is not in vain, and it really touches people, and you get to hear them tell you, this book touched me in this way, and it really does help the author, and it motivates the author to want to write more. So, and it's just getting more people reading. That's really what it's about, to get more people reading. And so that's just a corner of the things I got going on.
A corner.
More about
Jackie, tell people
morsel.
Tell people how they can find you.
I was just finna say, if you want to know anything else of the plethora of things that Listen Linda got going on, you can find me on Facebook. You can search Listen Linda 23, and then my profile, Jacqueline Cox, to pop up. Or you can find me on Instagram, Spiritual Sunbeam 2020. You can tune into my podcast, which is Listen Linda, hosted by Jacqueline Cox, and it's on all platforms.
And Miss Melanie?
You can find me on Facebook under Melanie Johnson, on IG, Melanie Johnson Speaks. I don't have a podcast. I'm not into Jackie. I just follow it behind my cousin. And
Girl, she been featured on Man Enough. You can hear all
yeah.
that, baby. She's the co-host.
And my photography page is Holistic Imagery, because I wanted to name my photography business after myself. So that's what a male come in, Holistic, because it's realistic pictures, but it's with a touch of me.
Right.
I don't do the AI pictures that some of the new photographers are doing. And when people see my pictures, they're like, "Oh, that's what I look like." I'm like, "Yeah, that's you."
Amen.
I love it. I love it. So I really thank you all, ladies, for coming on and helping us to understand more about the differences between poetry and how important poetry is.
Yeah.
So we will be talking some more in the future. And I just wanted to also let you all know, let the audience know that all of their information will be on my YouTube page, and you'll be able to find references to them on my Facebook page. And I just want to thank you for coming in with us, and thank you for listening. And if any questions you have, you're definitely welcome to post, and we will get back with you with your answers. So be blessed, be a blessing. This is Dr. AudreyAnn, and this is A Moment with Dr. AudreyAnn Moses. Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you, and I love you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we'll be talking soon.
Bye-bye.